The special session is done in Austin. It's December 5th, 2023, and these are your headlines. So I'm just coming from a press conference held by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, the reason for the press conference? Well, the Texas legislature has ended its fourth special session, with the Texas House once again leaving school choice undone. Now, you may remember Governor Greg Abbott tasked lawmakers with border security and education issues during this most recent special session. And while they made quick work of border security measures, those have been sent to the governor, the two chambers and the governor remain at an impasse regarding education. Governor Abbott specifically called for increased funding for government schools as well as a school choice program. And while both chambers appear to agree in the abstract on things like increased teacher pay and school safety funding, school choice remained a sticking point. The plan pushed by Governor Abbott and passed by the Senate would have created education savings accounts in which students enrolled in the program would receive money to pay for tuition at a private school. But while the Senate had passed that legislation numerous times, the House, of course, voted to strip the school choice provision out of its own omnibus school spending bill last month. And since that vote, the House didn't consider any additional legislation, leaving school safety and teacher pay raise proposals to perish. So that takes us to today. Even though the special session ends, technically it could have ended tomorrow, the Texas House called it quits early. They adjourned sine die. The Senate, with no other choice, followed suit, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called a press conference afterwards in which he underscored his issues with House Speaker Dade Phelan. Issues like school choice failing at the feet of Speaker Phelan, who, by the way, didn't even vote during that issue. The Speaker of the House will vote on priority issues. The Speaker did not make that issue a priority. He also talked about how the Speaker made passing border security measures difficult during the last special session. And perhaps most notably, Lieutenant Governor went even further by saying if he was a voter, he's a Republican voter, but if he was a voter in anyone's district, anyone who's running for Texas House, he would ask that member whether or not they support Dade Phelan. And if they support Dade Phelan, he probably wouldn't support them. Now, he hasn't endorsed any opponents. He says that he's going to stay out of House races. We'll see what happens in the weeks and months ahead. It's been 80 days since the Texas House was instructed to provide their expenses in the impeachment trial against Attorney General Ken Paxton, yet Speaker Dade Phelan has yet to comply. Now, an audit of both chambers' expenses in the trial was requested by who else but Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Now, in a letter to State Auditor Lisa Collier, Patrick asked for expenditures incurred by the Texas House of Representatives, the Texas Senate, and the Office of the Attorney General from March 1st through October 15th. Now, while the Senate and the Office of the AG have provided those numbers, the House is yet to do so. Phelan's office didn't respond to our request for comment on the status of providing their impeachment costs. The House hired prominent Houston attorneys Dick DeGuerin and Rusty Hardin to lead the prosecution at the cost of $500 an hour to taxpayers, along with a group of other lawyers providing legal assistance. Some lawmakers have suggested that Phelan and other members of the House team are embarrassed by the cost of their failed impeachment. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said that he wouldn't be surprised if the impeachment cost millions of dollars, and said, notably, that if the Speaker of the House does not provide the House's expenses in the impeachment trial by the end of the month, so December 31st, he says he will take things to the next level.
What have you been told all your life? That if somebody's a minority in the United States of America, they're a left-wing nutcase. CNN, MSNBS, they've all invested millions of dollars and tons of hours to convince you that if you're a minority in this country, you have to be a Democrat, you have to be a socialist, you have to be a communist. Well, the Salo Storm podcast destroys that narrative. There are a lot of folks out there who are quote-unquote people of color who just look at themselves as Americans, who want to preserve this last best hope of mankind on the planet, which is the United States of America, and loves our Constitution, loves the rule of law, because we know and understand what it means. So when you tune in to the Salcedo Storm podcast, that's what you're getting. Every single podcast, one way or another, We are dedicated to saving the United States of America as founded in the United States Constitution and destroying this narrative that, well, we Latinos are just all a bunch of left-wing nutcases.
Lastly, after a student in Dickinson Independent School District was allegedly targeted by her English teacher for her Israeli background, 2 Texas lawmakers are calling for a full investigation into the incident. That'd be State Senators Mays Middleton and State Representative Greg Bonin. They wrote a letter to DISD Superintendent Carla Volkel asking her to conduct a, quote, thorough and transparent investigation of the teacher and incidents that occurred. So what exactly happened? Well, last month, Talia Hayun, a freshman at Dickinson High School, said she walked into her English class, to find a message written on the whiteboard saying no justice, no peace, justice for Palestine. Talia then said that the teacher proceeded to ask her where she was from before asking if she still had family in Israel. She responded by saying that she and her family are all from Israel and some still live there. According to Talia, the message on the board was not part of any lesson. She believes it was an opportunity for her teacher to insert her political opinion about the Israel-Hamas war. After the incident, Talia's parents filed a complaint with the district's police department and school principal. Now, Representative Bonin and Senator Middleton are going further and asking the district to take every action possible to ensure that anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas radical Islamic terrorism ideals are not taught and encouraged in any classroom. You can find more news of the day at texasscorecard.com.